referral. It needs to be decided properly what we're going to put before council.
Right, so
if there are one or two amendments that need sorting out, then I can live with that. But if Councillor Marron's got 90 items and other people have got multiple items, then, well, fit for purpose springs to mind.
Right. Okay, but you propose to defer or reconvene, having
either of.
But having heard what Mr. Brown just said about that full council note it so we can work on it, you wouldn't be happy with that. You want to
full council need something they can agree or disagree.
Right. So okay. So can I ask who seconded that?
It was seconded by Councillor Murphy, I think.
I seconded it, Chairman.
That's right. Sorry.
Yeah, and
Councillor Benson.
We're looking a day or so, are we here? 11:30 tomorrow.
It was Northern Planning tomorrow, and there's OSC. I think Jane Brent said OSC is on Thursday. So the earliest it could be would be on Friday, wouldn't it?
There's a planning committee tomorrow, Northern Planning Committee.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Northern Planning tomorrow.
Oh, sorry, I didn't hear you. Yeah.
Thursday.
Could I just ask, Chairman, just before we take a vote on this, so that I know which way to vote, just trying to interpret what Mr. Brown said. He said that we could approve this recommendation. He would rewrite it to say to full council that, you know, this is a work in progress, and that the constitution itself would be referred back to the Constitution Committee for finishing off for the final version to be presented on the 12th of May. Because the night, obviously, I wish I probably hadn't said 90 now, but that reflected the fact that probably the word consultation comes up about 20 times. So that was included in my figure. So we've had a discussion once about it. So I've reduced that down to 71. But my point, I'm just trying to work this out. So if, as it stood, I would have voted against it. But if Mr. Brown is saying that if it moves on to council, it is not approved by council, because council will be told that it is an interim document that is going back to constitution to finish off. So all the points that I was really worried about, even if it goes in front of council, that's not the final version, is I think what he's saying.
I believe that's right. Yeah.
Yes, well, to me, I personally, I'm happy with that, because I've got plenty of time to sort my problems or issues out, part of which will be circulated to him later on today.
Right. So Councillor Williams wants to speak.
Mr. Chairman.
Oh, okay. Then I'll come to.
I'll wait. I'm very happy for council.
Sorry.
I'm in complete agreement with what Councillor Marron said, and I would be happy if he was to propose it. I'd be happy to second it. The reason I'm saying that, tomorrow's the only time I've got this week, and I'm sure, you know, as has already been said, there's loads of committees and things going on for the rest of the week anyway. So I think I'm more than happy to accept what Mr. Brown has suggested, and if David Marron wants to propose that, then I'll second it.
Okay, I've already proposed it.
Councillor Bailey wanted to comment.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You still have a proposal which has been seconded.
I know.
Thank you.
Yep. We're going to come to that.
Secondly, if I think of the resident that has questioned this process legitimately because of the lack of the golden thread, we are further changing a publicised document because basically, for whatever reason, and I know it happens, the work hasn't been done. And I'm going to have to mention 2 years. As this resident said, you've already deferred it once. Why isn't it in order? And then we have a problem because we have an agenda that I'm afraid, Mr. Chairman, was unrealistic. And we say that this system will be more open and transparent. I haven't time for another meeting this week. I'm sure no one else has. But that isn't the point. The point is that we are accountable, and I find it I find it very disappointing and not open and transparent. And these points have been raised so many times, and I sound like a broken record. So, but can we first can we take the first vote?
We will now.
My main concern.
Yeah. No, that's right. So, Councillor Edgar is proposed. I think you have to say it verbally, don't you, Councillor Edgar? That you...
Yes, I'm happy to propose deferral, Chair, to a later meeting to iron out all the points, to bring them forward to full council to get the matter sorted out with minor items. The reduction of 90 to 71 is 25% less than before, and there are still 71 items that Councillor Marin needs to get sorted out, and about 20 of my own. Thank you. Right.
Okay, so we're voting now on deferral then.
Just a second, Councillor Edgar. I think that would not preclude. I second Councillor Edgar's proposal. That would not preclude Mr. Brown from putting a holding item, an update item on the council agenda to say that this is still a work in progress and we're getting on with it. Nothing to stop them doing that at all. So I second the proposal, Chairman. Thank you.
Right. Okay, so we're now voting for deferral. Okay, so obviously 4 against, abstain. So I think we've better take a vote on this. So Mark Asquith, Councillor Asquith, are you there?
Yay. I got to the mute button before you did. I'm for deferral.
Okay, Councillor Bayliss.
Sorry, for deferral.
Councillor Benson.
For deferral.
Okay, Councillor Bratherton.
I don't know when we're deferring to, though.
I think that would be TBA at this point, wouldn't it?
Yeah. Right. Well, I'm not prepared to vote for something that hasn't got a full resolution, so I'm not voting.
Not voting.
Yeah.
Okay, Councillor Clowes.
Well, I have absolutely no time when I could fit in an adjournment, so I'm afraid I will have to vote for a deferral.
Okay, Councillor Crane.
I'm against the deferral, thank you.
Councillor Edgar, obviously 4.
I might go 4 on this one.
Yep. Councillor Hogben.
Against.
Councillor Marin.
On the basis that we've been assured by the monitoring officer that we're not recommending version 1 to council, but that it will be indicated as work in progress, I will vote against the deferral.
Okay, Councillor Martin.
For deferral.
Councillor Murphy.
For deferral.
I'm against. Then Councillor Stott.
Against.
And Councillor Williams.
I'm against for similar reasons to Councillor Marin.
Okay, so it's 7 for deferral, 6 against, and 1 abstain. So we're going to defer all items from here on this rest of this agenda. And we'll have to come up with a new date as soon as possible.
Was it? I thought it was just for this one item. We could still clear the other items on the agenda.
No, it's defer the rest of the agenda.
Oh, I didn't understand that.
No, I'm sorry. It was this item on the agenda, not the rest of the agenda at all.
Well, you better take the vote again then, and so that you actually know what you're voting on. That's what I'd say.
Well, we were voting for a deferral of this item. As simple as that.
This item, nothing else.
That's right. That's what I understood. Yeah.
So it's been approved.
Yeah.
We now need to deal the rest of the agenda.
Just this item then, was it? Does that make
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, that was my mistake. And okay, so this item.
Can we just have the monitoring officer's advice on that? Because from the conversation, it is clear that it wasn't clear.
So, Mr. Brown, do you want to come back in on that?
Sorry, councillors. I'm just trying to think. As far as the noting and the clerks, what is our record saying in our note, please?
Yeah, shall I just come in here, Chair?
Yeah.
So the vote that was put, the proposal, the proposition was proposed deferral is what I wrote down, which was seconded. So I think the way that this could be handled appropriately is for the chair to take a sense of the meeting now as to whether or not it was understood that it was just that item that was being deferred, or whether or not it was the whole of the agenda. And I think a sense of the meeting, if the meeting is willing to continue to consider other items on the agenda, it can do that. The point about deferral was made upon this particular, at the time of consideration of this particular item. So I've heard a number of views expressed that members felt that they were only voting for that item to be.
I'm sorry, Chair, but I only proposed deferral on this item on the agenda. I was not referring to anything else later on the agenda. Had I have wanted that, I would have proposed all those items on the agenda, not just the one we were referring to.
Chairman, point of order.
Consider the rest of it.
Yeah, Councillor Asper.
If Councillor Edgar had intended that the meeting should be adjourned, he would have proposed adjournment, but he didn't. He proposed deferral, which clearly relates to the single item rather than adjourning the entire meeting.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mark.
Right. So the feeling is then we've deferred this item. So then we'll carry on with item 10 to 14. Is that right?
Agreed, Chairman.
Yes.
Thank you,
Agreed. Agreed.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Right then. So let's move on then to item 10, which is the transitional provisions of future constitutional work, which is pages 611 to 626. And I'm afraid that I think this is you again, Mr. Brown.
Thank you, Chair. It's kind of you to call on me again. I think the Constitution Working Group did consider this paper in some degree. I should preface the comment by saying that I've attempted to arrange some further assistance for the committee from the finance officer around the budget issues, but fundamentally, and perhaps the key element to move forward with the drafting of the Constitution, are the general provisions on how we translate what are previous cabinet decisions into the committee world as we move forward, and how those decisions translate in terms of whether they go to committee or go to officers. Hopefully the document is relatively clear. The Constitution Working Group had one significant element that they wanted to arise, and if I can take members of the committee to page 622, which is Appendix 1 to the report, which is the schedule of transitional provisions. And I do apologise, I'm going quickly because of the lateness of the hour. But effectively, under the general provisions for portfolio holder, what was drafted provided for a general provision where matters other than those listed would be moved down to an executive director for deciding, whereas matters that related to policy, material budget increase, or material change in service, or outside of the corporate plan or current MTFS, go to committee. Now, we are attempting during that process to try and give effect to those 5 principles again around the efficiency of decision making. The Constitution Working Group, as you all recollect, suggested that that was an incorrect division, and that matters should indeed go back to committee from portfolio holder. So that's perhaps the most contentious item. You will also see in there that we make provision for where decisions previously related to portfolio holder in consultation with officers, they will be translating across broadly to officers and consultation with chairs of service committees. And I think Councillor Marron's raised that point about the word consultation and agreement previously as well. So I think those are perhaps the most controversial elements in relation to the transitional provisions. It may be as easy if I simply take questions on the rest, if that's in your preferred approach, Councillor or Chair. Appendix 2 was just the indicative budget setting process. However, again, not wishing to prolong your discussion, you'll find that there is a budget setting process in the previous constitution papers. He says turning to it, which you'll find at page 476. So I appreciate we deferred that item. So it may be that Appendix 2 is of less interest to you until you've had a look at page 476 in more detail. The third element of that appendix is really just picking up some of the points that have already been made by committee members, is that the amount of work still to be done. You'll see there that we've mentioned access to information and transparency rules as item 4. Councillor Clowes has mentioned that earlier. The codes of conduct, 8 and onwards, need to be doing. So we've done some of this work, but I'm very conscious that you will be revising a lot of these rules, say the financial procedure rules, after implementation of the committee system, when you've really felt whether the balance is there. So to pick up on Councillor Murphy's point earlier, whatever we put to council now will not be set in stone. It will be a matter that will have to be revisited. And I'm anticipating a number of revisits, if I'm honest, both in November, which full council has asked for in any event, but also I suspect on recommendation of the Corporate Policy Committee, who are likely to be listening to the members and any observation they have, so you can see interim papers. So perhaps if it was questions.
Okay, well, Councillor Marron has said he'd like to speak.
Thank you. Mr. Brown did make mention of that paragraph on page 622 that we have talked about before. This is where decisions that were going to be made by portfolio holders, as they are at the moment, by single portfolio holders, there was they were going to be directed downwards, and we have had that discussion and said we'd like it to go in the opposite direction, but this report doesn't say that. So if this is going to be recommended on to council, I would like to see those 2 sentences deleted before it gets moved on to council, which would be matters to be decided by the relevant executive director / director : any other matter previously delegated to member of cabinet / portfolio holder. Those 2 sentences to be deleted, and that will reflect the previous conversation that we've had. The only other, and it's relatively minor alteration I would like to see, is at page 618, paragraph 5.3. Now, we've had discussions in the past about the budget being discussed at other committees when this moves on, but I seem to recall it was a total budget amount, as though there was going to be no detail there. I can't quite remember what the phraseology was, but it was at very, very high level. And so what I would have wanted to see at 5.3 is where it says the new budget process will provide each committee with a review of the mid-year position. I would like to see the words by individual service area put in there. So in other words, we don't just get one budget figure of it says 10 million and we can do anything we want with that 10 million in between. It's like each service area broken down. So that's the only other change I would want to see there. And then if those two things are done, I'll be quite supportive of it.
Okay, well, if we come back to Mr. Brown first, then to Janet Clowes, Councillor Clowes.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, in respect to deletion of those sentences, that's Councillor Marron's correct. We haven't updated the paper. The committee will simply need to vote that amendment through if that's the way they choose. I'm conscious that a large number of members of the working group were indeed are present today, so I'm not anticipating a hugely different outcome. And I've taken on board that service area, budget by service area. I will speak to the 151 and see what I can arrange from that. We have tried in dealing with the budgets for each committee to align budgets and services, so effectively heads of services with committees according to the functions. There are some overlaps in children's area and adults area in the social service function. So my concern is it possible to do it by service areas, because some service areas overlap committees? And that I still need to check, I'm afraid. It may be that we provide the information for both.
Councillor Clowes.
Thank you. Yes, so really just picking up on what Councillor Marron and Mr. Brown have said. Yeah, we have discussed this at length in the working group, and it was made quite clear there that there were not committee budgets per se, but that budgets would still be aligned to the MTFS. And earlier on today, it was made very, very clear the adherence to the MTFS and corporate plan as we go forward with this. But I do see that there will be elements where either in the transition over or as we start to work with committees in a more fluid and in a more formulated way, that there may be times when perhaps children and families committees will need to actually have a joint committee if they're talking about, let's say, transition funding for 14 to 25-year-olds or whatever. So I think it is about making sure that these schedules for transitional provisions are sufficiently cognizant of those overlaps, and perhaps word it in ways that make it clear that that can happen when necessary. The other element that we did raise at previous meetings was, it's recognised that officers will be making delegated decisions related to budget. And I think we have said that there needs to be some mechanism whereby those officer decisions come back to committee for consideration and recognition, and perhaps some degree of review on a regular basis. And I think we were talking about it quarterly, perhaps to tie in with the quarter one, quarter two, etc. reports, again tying into the MTFS, so that there is clarity and transparency about how monies are being spent as we go through on that annual budgetary cycle. Thank you.
Thank you. So Mr. Brown, do you want to come back on that, or?
Thank you, Chair. Picking up the items in reverse, officer delegated decisions. We have a current ODR, or officer delegated reporting process, in place. Bringing those back to committees, I think, is primarily going to be an operational issue, and I can see the attraction for some committees wanting to see them quarterly, so we can try and write that in if that's the will of the committee. whether it's part of the constitution or just a recognition of those transitional changes, I think it just becomes a recognition of those transitional changes. In respect of joint committees, it is a matter that we have given some thought to. We are aware of crossovers, so if you were to take, I say uncommon examples, because it's always those that cause the most difficulty. If we were to say want to build a school and we needed to change the road network to facilitate that, you would probably have both children's, highways and other areas of education budgets involved, and somehow we have to get to a position where one committee effectively leads. We have a controlling mind. It may be that we sit with members of other committees. It may be that the committees almost sit in a sequential tandem. So there are routes to deal with, but we had put off the solutions, if I can put it that way, until the problem presented, on the basis that we were dealing with effectively the phase 1 elements now, and those more complex cross-budget decisions will probably follow in a little bit later. I can say that the general feeling in relation to crossover of budgets is the committee where, if you like, the bulk of the funding would come from is probably the right place for the lead committee to sit. Now, that is likely, I suspect, to be a discussion between committee chairs and members of each committee in due course, but I haven't got a process to resolve that at the moment.
Okay. So, on that case then, I can't see any more questions from anybody. So, with those comments from Mr. Brown being taken into a consideration, do you want to put this to the vote?
There was an amendment about taking out the delegated powers. I think that's accepted by Mr. Brown. It's they were talking about portfolio decisions. We're going to go downwards, and we're deleting those two lines. Was my amendment, if there is support from anybody else, and I'd be surprised if there wasn't, on the basis there were 5 people supporting only a week ago.
So, and I'd be happy to support Councillor Marron's.
Mr. Chairman, forgive me, you can't see my hand, I know. I'm supportive of Councillor Marron, and I am also particularly supportive of his comments in relation to page 618 5.3. I appreciate the monitoring officer's responses, and I'm no doubt he's working on it, because those responses were heard from by governance working group members, but it can be done. And I think in view of the current bi-monthly meetings for all service areas, it's even more important that those figures are available, that detail isn't available, rather than a headline figure. Indeed, it was something that my previous cabinet worked to deliver on. Thank you.
Okie dokie. So okay, with the alteration to portfolio holder consultation, those two lines, 5.3 being looked into, and the comments by Councillor Clowes, does anyone want to propose and second that on the recommendation, which is on page 611, that the committee recommend this report to add Appendix A to Council?
I will propose it with the amendment.
Yep.
Added onto the recommendation. Yeah.
Yep. Okay. So that's I seconded. Now, do I need to go through a vote, or? Yeah, I'm being told we do need to go through a vote, and I think Councillor Clowes, you have to verbally say that you're.
I'm verbally saying that I'll second as amended. Thank you.
Okie dokie. So is everybody happy with that? So, obviously for agenda item 10 with amendments, Councillor Asquith.
For.
Councillor Bailey.
For.
Councillor Benson.
For.
Councillor Brotherton.
4.
Councillor Clowes.
4.
Councillor Crane.
4.
Councillor Edgar.
4.
Councillor Hogben. Councillor Hogben.
Sorry, did you not hear me? I did call out
No.
4.
Okay, sorry. Okay, right. Thank you. Councillor Maron.
4.
Councillor Martin.
4.
Councillor Murphy.
4.
Councillor James Higgins 4. Councillor Amanda Stott.
4.
Councillor Williams.
4.
Wow. Agreement. Crikey. Okay, thank you very much on that one. So the next item then is item 11, which is audit and governance. Committee structure and composition, which is page 627 to 644, which I understand Josie Griffiths, you're going to introduce this report.
Thank you, Chair.
Sorry to have kept you for so long.
You're very welcome. So I refer members to the report and appendix beginning at page 627 of your pack. The Audit and Governance Committee received a report in November 2020, setting out various aspects for consideration in relation to the committee's composition and structure, prompted by a number of factors, including the corporate peer challenge, the completion of the co-opted independent members' term in March 21, and the move to a committee system of decision making. The committee subsequently established a working group to consider these matters in greater detail, which reported back to the committee in March 21, made their recommendations in relation to the size of the committee, the number of co-opted independent members, and other points relating to the separation of this committee from core decision making and the continuation of this committee for code of conduct purposes. These are set out in the current report from paragraph 4.1 on page 6 to 8, and in the detailed proposed terms of reference, in appendix 1 starting page 638, and are recommended by the Audit and Governance Committee for the Constitution Committee to recommend to full council. Committee members will note at 447 the recommendation of the working group for the terms of reference of this committee to be reviewed within the first year of operation, and this can be accommodated within the committee's work plan. Just to add as well that following the consideration by the Audit and Governance Committee in March, a further clarification has been requested by the Director of Governance and Compliance. This is set out in 4.4 to the report and provides clarification on the proportionality arrangements for a hearing subcommittee. Subject to agreement, a further report on the process to be followed for the recruitment of the co-opted independent member will be brought to the Audit and Governance Committee in the first instance. Happy to assist with any questions, Chair.
Thank you. Thank you very much for that. Any questions from anybody? I see Councillor Stott.
Thank you, Chair and Josie. Could I propose that, given the amount of work that's already been done by the Audit and Governance Working Group and then the committee itself, that this item, I'm happy to propose that this item is accepted and the recommendation should go to the vote. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So we've got a proposal there, but I see that Councillor Maron, you wanted to speak, and then Councillor Hogben.
Yes, thank you. It's I felt it was a good report and quite supportable. I would wonder whether consideration could be given to 2 minor changes, relatively minor, but one was on page 641, paragraph 27, and this is the paragraph that refers to the local government ombudsman's report, and what I would like to see inserted then in there after the word necessary is and as a result of or arising from. So in other words, it seems restrictive. It may be that the audit committee would like to direct that a report is done or some further work be undertaken in terms of investigating, and there could be an argument about whether it's necessary or not. I just thought it would ease the path slightly if we were to change that wording and to say that may be necessary or arising from the Ombudsman findings is a small moot point. And the other point that I'd like to raise is relative to page 642, paragraph 38, and page 643, paragraph 41. And what I was thinking is that if we're going to have 2 independent members on the committee, it might be better that the 2 independent members sit on the hearing subcommittees, and in a way that takes a little, it gives assurance to people that are turning up there when they're summoned to them, that maybe it's less political than otherwise it might be, or that they perceive it to be. So all I'm saying is, if there are 2 independents on the committee, can they be automatically part of that hearing subcommittee? So essentially 2 small points that I wonder whether we could change the recommendation to adopt those.
Thank you, Councillor Marin. Chair, am I okay to respond? Yep. Can I take those points in reverse order? I'd like Councillor Brown, Mr. David Brown's clarification on the hearing subcommittee and the role of the co-opted independent members for the hearing subcommittee. I think there may be slightly different requirements for them.
Thank you, Chair, if I may. I understand perfectly where Councillor Marin is coming from on this issue. Unfortunately, the current regulations only require 1 independent member. That independent member is present, comment and can speak, but is not voting on the hearing subcommittee, and that's the legislative regime for standards. We do have 2 or provision for 2 independent members in the standards element already, but they are 2 different people from the independent members that are spoken of in terms of the audit committee. And the other point to make is that the current process, and I appreciate the code of conduct are due for refresh, but our current process actually does not allow an independent person who has been involved in the investigation side to sit with the committee at the standards hearing side. So there's a bit of tidying up that will have to go on before we could accept Councillor Marin's in principle suggestion, and unfortunately the overall suggestion is not currently in line with the statutory framework. In respect of party politics in the standards committee, I appreciate again we have tried to write in provision for the chair of the standards subcommittee not being of the same group. Again, it's about how it looks and how members of the public perceive things, and that is the reason why we have put in there, and this would require all of council to accept without default, a removal of the proportionality requirement of the subcommittee, so that it allows for those circumstances where subject members and the members of the committee can be of different political groups when they're being considered by their peers. But that's the only matter for you.
Chairman.
Who just spoke then?
It's Councillor Murphy, Chair.
Oh.
Sorry, I just wanted definition. What do you mean by independent member?
In this circumstance, Councillor Murphy, it would be a member of the public who's subject to various criteria would be a non-voting member of the part of the committee. Fine,
thank you. That's what I was hoping for.
Okay, Councillor Hogben, I think was next, and then Councillor Bailey.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Well, I'm happy with most of the recommendations and good piece of work. One question I have got, and that's relating to the proposal at 4.4.2, which suggests that we should reduce the size of the Audit and Governance Committee to 9. Now, as I understand it, on the Audit and Governance Committee, when it met, there were those who wanted it to remain at 10, and those who wanted it to remain at 8, and the Appliance of Science, or not, said, oh, let's just split the difference and make it 9. Now, I don't see that that's a very good, I don't see that as a justification for reducing the size of the committee. Now, it's my understanding when I was a member of Audit and Governance that the key issue actually was about the number of independent persons, members of the public, if it were as you wish, you know, rather than just having one, that we perhaps ought to have 2 or more. And my own personal view is, well, yeah, have as many as you like, as long as they speak and vote. That would be good, wouldn't it? So I don't really see what the purpose is in reducing the number of members of the committee to 10, from 10 to 9. And there's also an interesting outcome from that politically, which can be dealt with. But is there any good reason actually for reducing the number on the committee? Because it's fine to have 10 members for the last however many years, 11, 10 years that I know of, and possibly 12 others may be able to advise. I'd like to see that remain at 10 myself.
Happy to respond, Councillor Hogben. The recommendation was from the working group of 9. That was a decision that was reached. As you'll see in 443, the recommendation is to include 2 co-opted independent members. So the overall total size in itself wouldn't change. But if committee members feel strongly that there should be a different size of the committee, considering the terms of reference that have been set out, proposed for the committee, then that's for the committee to determine.
What, this committee? You're talking about this committee to determine, or to recommend to council? Actually, he'll decide. Yeah. Okay. Well, I'll hear what others may have to say, but I may wish to. I'd like to see an amendment for that to remain at 10 members, but I'll listen to others to see whether they're receptive to that suggestion.
Okay, now Councillor Bailey's next, but bearing in mind that you were on the working group, Councillor Bailey, should we hear from? Would you be okay if we heard from Councillor Murphy first, and then you could?
Yeah, no problem. And I think Councillor Clowes was before me as well.
Oh, I think she just wanted to. Councillor Clowes just wanted to second at the time.
Sorry, Mr. Chairman, my question was already answered. So.
Oh, okay, all right. I don't have Councillor Clowes down here wanting to speak. Oh, sorry, yes, I do. Sorry, Councillor Clowes. My apologies.
I am there to speak. Really, I just wanted to offer clarity on 634. Obviously, that was a misprint that was identified at a previous meeting. I don't know whether it needs to be removed in due course. I thought it was going to be removed, but there we are. Because I think it would be quite wrong for one group to have 21 representatives on this committee. Yeah. And then in terms of 4.42 and 4.43, in seconding, that is what I would want to approve. I am wary of this stage, and perhaps, we do need to wait for Councillor Bailey to speak. But, I know that with Josie's advice and support, the Audit and Governance group have obviously debated this, worked through the terms of reference and come up with their recommendations. So I'm a bit wary of arbitrarily changing their recommendations without a better understanding of why they came to them. And so consequently, I would not be able to support Councillor Hogben's suggestion at this stage. So perhaps we need to move on to Councillor Bailey's bit next, as it were. Thank you.
Yeah, nobody else wants to speak anyway, so Councillor Bailey, you've got...
Yeah, thank you. It's related to openness and transparency, and very much the will to follow the corporate peer reviews advice in terms of independent members. There was also, from recollection, a clear view that actually an odd number of members was healthy. And the view was that if there were 9 elected members, that gave absolute provision for 2 elected members. We rightly heard, if I remember correctly, and I'm sure that Josie will pick me up on this if my recollection is wrong, but we rightly heard that independent members don't grow on trees. We value them, and we value them for those important words of openness and transparency. But it was felt that there should be a real role given to them, and in particular purpose of attendance, not that we've had an experience where with our current independent member that attendance hasn't been excellent, but it was absolutely about, and it wasn't one political group, it was across the conversation, that it was the focus on the Corporate Peer Challenge report, accommodation of independent members, and showing that we were willing to, you know, as elected members, willing to very much accommodate that.
Okay.
I just couldn't confirm. I don't think I quite use those words that they don't grow on trees, but certainly there can be a scarcity of volunteers for such a role. And you know, I think we did establish in the working group and the committee meeting that there may very well be a recruitment process to advertise and encourage attendance, which we may not be able to fulfil both positions straight away. But you know, it is recognised now in national and regionally the importance of co-opted independent members.
Okay, thank you very much. So Councillor Maren's come up with an alternative wording for page 641, item 27. Would you?
I don't think that there's a problem with that.
No? Okay.
Perhaps we could defer to the Chair and the Vice Chair of Audit and Governance Committee to confirm that they're happy with that recommendation.
Okay, would we have to do that?
I'm sure Brian will help me unpick how we can make that happen in practice, or whether it's necessary.
I think, Chair, the determination is for this committee. I think it would be courteous to inform the Chair and Vice Chair of the Audit and Governance Committee that this is the line that is being proposed at the end of the day. I think this is a recommendation, is it not, to Council, at which any dissent from that course of action can be picked up. So I think it's for this committee to make the recommendation to Council.
Okay, so do we have a proposer and second for this with the changes that Councillor Maren has requested?
Well, I'll propose it.
As seconder, I don't have a problem with taking on board Councillor Maren's last sentence for paragraph 27.
Okay, so
I don't know about Councillor Stott.
Yeah, so Councillor Stott, would you be happy with that?
Yes, absolutely, Chair. Thank you.
Okay, so Councillor Stott's proposed. Councillor Clowes has seconded it with the changes at 27. So do we need to take a vote again? Yeah. Okay, so obviously for, against, abstain, Councillor Asquith.
Yeah. I'm in favour. 4.
In 4. Okay, Councillor Bailey.
Yeah, 4.
Councillor Benson.
4.
Brotherton.
4.
Clowes.
4.
Brain.
4.
Edgar.
Sorry, I can't vote. I have to abstain. I lost contact during the debate.
Okie dokie. Thank you for your honesty. Councillor Hogben.
I don't think Councillor Edgar missed much. Reluctantly 4. I'm still not happy about reducing the numbers of the members on the committee, but 4.
Okay, Councillor Maren.
4.
Councillor Martin.
4.
Councillor Murphy.
4.
I'm Councillor James Nicholas 4. Councillor Stott.
4.
And Councillor Williams.
4.
Okay, that's
Context 14, item 14.
yeah. Okay, so that's carried. So I'm being asked, because we've got staff at Westfields who are waiting to deal with item 14. So I'm being asked if we could bring that forward, so we don't have to keep them unnecessarily. So if we can jump to item 14 now, which is the appointment of a new member of independent school admissions from pages 667 to 670, and I do believe this is now.
Yes, the chair. Yeah, it's Roisin Baresi. If you
Roisin is the
pronounce my name. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I thought it might be Roisin.
Yeah.
Well, we're sorry to keep you, but please introduce the report, please.
Thank you. Yes, thank you, Chair. The report invites the committee to consider the appointment of one individual to become a member of the Independent School Admission Appeals Panel and the Independent Panel for Exclusion Reviews. The local authority is a panel of people registered as panel members who are eligible to sit on either the School Admissions Appeal Panel or the Independent Review Panel for Exclusions. And this pool can be fluid, so the local authority periodically looks to recruit. We have received an application. The process, if I just briefly explain, is an application form is received. The individual then is interviewed, and obviously if successful they will undergo some training. So we have received an application. This individual has been interviewed, and the proposal is we would like to put this individual forwards. However, as identified in the report, the applicant's details are not included. If members require the personal details of the applicant to be disclosed and discussed, then obviously the committee will have to resolve to move into part 2. And obviously it's a matter for the chair and the committee as to whether they want it to be moved into part 2.
Okay.
Chairman, may I say, Councillor Asquith here, I see no need to move into part 2. I'm completely content with the report. I suggest we progress rapidly with this matter. Let Roisin go home.
Thank you.
Okay.
Proposing it.
So I presume then, Councillor Asquith, you're proposing that?
Yes. I wasn't, but I am now.
Okay,
I'm happy to second it, Councillor Nicholas.
Who was that? Councillor Clowes?
Yeah, Janet.
Okay, and I've got Councillor. Okay, so I've got Councillor Bailey who's got a hand up now.
Just, I know several people who could have applied for this post. I don't know whether they have or they haven't. Presumably, we are voting blind, so we have no declaration to make.
Yeah.
I don't want to delay matters further with part 2 item either, but I'm just seeking absolute clarity. I mean, if I abstain, that will cover it, and I'm happy to do that as long as you understand why.
I'm just going to get clarification from Mr. Reid on that.
Thank you, Chair. I think the monitoring officer will agree with me that the declaration of an interest only occurs upon knowledge of that interest having arisen, and therefore, at the moment, members can only go upon the face of the papers before them, which are limited in detail. So I wouldn't see any issue at all on the good point raised by Councillor Bailey.
Thank you for the clarity.
Okay.
Chairman, on the other hand, Councillor Bailey may wish to abstain purely on the basis of personal relationships in the future.
Right. Okay. I don't really get that. Okay. So
he doesn't want to fall out with people.
Oh, right. Okay. So Councillor Asquith has proposed. It's been seconded by Councillor Clowes. So we're going to the vote again, and it comes straight to you, Councillor Asquith.
Obviously for, but surely we can do a sense in the meeting.
I think it ought to be dealt with properly.
Yeah, I'm
very
told
good.
We can't do that.
For.
So, Councillor Bailey.
To be safe, I'm going to abstain. I'm going to take I appreciate Mr. Reid's advice and Councillor Asquith.
No, fair enough. And I'll drop the councillor. So, Benson.
For.
I'm not being rude. Bradderton.
4.
Clowes.
4.
Oh, hold on a second. Crane.
4.
Edgar.
4.
Hogben.
4.
Maron.
4.
Martin.
4.
Murphy.
4.
Nicholas. Yeah, I'm 4. Stott.
4.
And Williams.
Also 4.
Okie dokie. That's passed. And
12, is it?
so thank you very much, Rasheen. Sorry to have kept you.
That's all right. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you.
All right, take care. So now we go back to item 12, which is the proposed changes to the Cheshire East Health and Wellbeing Board, which is on pages 645 to 658.
Guy Kilminster.
And Guy Kilminster, I believe you are presenting this report for us. Guy Kilminster, are you there?
Do you want me to do what I can?
Okay. Well, I think Mr. Reed's going to take over.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And it may be that Mr. Kilminster has been diverted to something else, or perhaps something has come up. He was lined up before the meeting. Members have the report before them, and I do hope that you will bear with me, because I don't have the benefit of having been to the meeting of the Health and Wellbeing Board. When you see the pages at pages 645 to 658, as I understand it, Mr. Chairman, this is an iteration of the terms of reference already in place. There may be some changes. So unless any other officer colleagues have got particular knowledge of this matter, I can add little more than is in the paperwork, other than the history, which is in the past, the committee has been prepared to accept the recommended terms of reference from the Health and Wellbeing Board and to recommend them on to Council. I think there is a helpful suggestion in the chat from Councillor Clowes, who has possibly experienced the debate at the Health and Wellbeing Board, but please forgive me for my lack of detailed knowledge of this matter today.
So, Councillor Clowes, thank you for stepping up to the plate. Can you?
Yes, thank you. Yes, I was at the meeting where this was debated, the Health and Wellbeing Board. I should say at this point, a lot of the wording and the regulation around membership of the Health and Wellbeing Board is set out. I think I've mentioned it 3 times today in passing. The 2012 Health and Social Care Act. And basically what this paper reflects is just a simple change of wording to account for the committee system. So where it used to be, for example, the cabinet member for adults, the leader and public health and similar types of allocations, it's just moving to the fact that we will have 3 elected members. And I believe it's understood that they will come from the committee chairs. And I think Guy's here actually. But basically, this is not substantively different from what we have approved at full council in the past, other than to, if you like, make allowances in the terminology for the committee system coming forward. So I am quite happy with that and happy to approve. But Guy might well have other things he wants to add to that. Thank you.
Sincere apologies, Chair and members. I think my system had got fed up with waiting. It completely stuck, so I couldn't unmute and I couldn't show myself on camera or even send you a message. So I've had to log out and come back in. So I do apologise for that. So yes, these changes very quickly, because I realise it's very late, required because of the changes to the senior management structure with Mark Palethorpe leaving recently, and an acting director of adult social care and an interim director of children's services being introduced. So the proposal is that the acting director of adult social care becomes the voting member of the board, and the interim director of children's services becomes an non-voting member. That retains the requirement in the legislation to have both of those senior posts at the table, but it also retains the voting balance. And then the other change that's required is because of the introduction of the committee system, and it's just a relatively minor change in terms of how the 3 core voting members, the councillor members of the board, are nominated. So it states in the current terms of reference that that is done by the leader. That won't be possible in the committee system, and the Health and Wellbeing Board terms of reference have therefore been changed to just say that there will be 3 councillors nominated by Cheshire East Council, and then the process of that nomination will be sorted out internally by the council, but it's not necessary for the Health and Wellbeing Board to know the details of that. And then there's just a couple of tidying up points where the names of the scrutiny committee have been changed to reflect the new names as a result of the committee changes. So that's it in its briefest form, Chair. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for that, Mr. Kilminster. So Councillor Clowes has proposed approval, and Councillor Marin has proposed to second, although I think you have to do that.
Second, Chair.
Okay. So I don't see anybody else want to speak, so I suggest we go straight to the vote again. But I've been asked if we can go backwards this time. So should we do that? So give Councillor Asquith a break. So I'll come to Councillor Williams first.
4.
Okay, Councillor Stott.
4.
And Councillor Nicholas, 4. Councillor Murphy.
4.
Councillor Martin.
4.
Councillor Marin.
4.
Hogben.
4.
Edgar.
4.
Crane.
4.
Clowes.
4.
Brotherton.
4.
Benson.
4.
Bailey.
4.
And last but not least, Asquith.
Oh, sorry, Chairman, I fell asleep waiting. 4.
Right, yeah. Okay, thank you very much. That's unanimous 4. So thank you for your time, Mr. Kilminster. Sorry to have kept you.
That's okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. So last item is item 13, amalgamation of the council's member forum and panels.
Do you want me to take it?
Yeah, which is pages 659 to 666, and Mr. Reid's going to do that.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, page 659. I'll be very brief, Mr. Chairman. The report here in paragraph 1.1 tells us that we're dealing here with something that's been really well covered, Mr. Chairman, both in the Corporate Overview and Scrutiny Committee and the 3-member panels concerned. We're dealing with the proposed amalgamation of those bodies and the bringing of some proper process around the work that they do. Currently, we've got the Brighter Future Members Forum, the Member Training and Development Panel or Technology and Development Panel. We have the Member Inquiry Services Panel, and quite a bit of work now has been carried out over the last year to bring forward proposals to join them up into one panel, and the suggestion from members of those bodies is that it should be called the Members Input Panel. Mr. Chairman, the recommendations in paragraph 2 are set out there, and they are right at the bottom of page 659. We see the terms of reference at page 665, so that is an amalgam of the terms of reference of the applicable parts of the existing work of the bodies. And we see that in the report itself, just for clarity, on page 660, paragraph 4, we have actually set out the roles of the existing panels. And the findings of the 3 panels is that work has started to overlap. And so, as I've said before, the panels have worked quite hard to develop new terms of reference, etc., and to bring this proposal to you. The Corporate Overview and Scrutiny Committee have looked at the paperwork, and as I understand it, Councillor Clowes is here, is in support of the proposal before you. And therefore the focus of the new panel, if agreed, is set out on paragraph 4.6, page 661. It's really all about how councillors engage with council work and how advice might be given to council upon issues of member support. So I'll leave it there, Chair. I think I've covered all of the relevant issues, but maybe Councillor Clowes would want to say something just to confirm that endorsement I believe is there from the Corporate Overview and Scrutiny Committee.
Okay, but before that, we've got Councillor Wardlaw who's asked if she could speak.
Thank you, Chair. I'll be brief. I appreciate you've all had a long day. I just wanted to bring to your attention, to this committee's attention, that throughout the process, while we've been discussing about the amalgamation of these committees, that it's been my primary focus is to highlight to members that this committee, that it is one of the few committees that is for members and about members, and it's so important that we maintain a high visibility on this, and that we still retain that focus about what we are doing as members for each other and with each other. It's one of the few committees that is, supported by officers, but it is about us. And so I just want to highlight that to your committee and make sure that they see it as such. And it is an important step that we amalgamate, but it's equally important that each facet of the amalgamation retains its priorities. Thank you for allowing me to speak. Thank you.
That's right. Thank you for your brevity. It's appreciated, I think, at this time. Councillor Hogben.
Although you're going to say, so that's an end to brevity. Wrong.
I was thinking it.
I just want to raise one point, really. I noticed that in the report summary, it suggests that we're invited to agree that the head of democratic services, etc., should agree the number of panel members in consultation with the chairman and vice chairman of the committee based on political proportionality. Except that the panel must have representation from all of the council's political groups. That's fine. It's interesting. I didn't, because this is the shape of things to come, isn't it? That Brian Reid will have the power, and he'll consult with the chairman and me, or chairman and vice chairman in general. Simple question, and I'll just throw it open. Really, I wonder if there are any views. Maybe perhaps from Councillor Clowes or even Councillor Wardlaw, any views on the number of members for the panel, or suitable number, and should they be sort of roll or post holders? Because that was certainly the basis upon which some of these positions were filled in the past, sort of could be leader, deputy leader or whip or whatever. And I think it'd be sensible to retain that kind of mix of maybe post holders or roll holders, some of them unpaid, and if you like, lay members. So speaking only for myself, I'm totally open to suggestions of numbers and the kind of composition that we want. And subject to that, I'd be actually quite happy to propose the printed recommendation.
Okay, so Councillor Bailey and then Councillor Clowes.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. My desire to speak relates to the Member Inquiry Service. If I think of early discussions about the Member Inquiry Service, it was always about it evolving. I will leave my leader to comment on representative numbers, but I think it's very important that there is a review of the Member Inquiry Service. The COVID pandemic has impacted on workloads massively for officers, and therefore response times in some instances, not all, and that's understandable. And I think there needs to be a review as soon as is possible on that experience for members. So I would want backbenchers in response to Councillor Hogben's query to have input, particularly on the member inquiry service, along with obviously that strategic view of how it's rolled out not only to MPs, but in particular our starting point of today's meeting, our town and parish councils and how we engage with them. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Clowes.
Thank you. Well, certainly I take on board what Councillor Bailey, Councillor Hogben and Councillor Wardlaw have said. I think it's something we need to just bear in mind that at corporate scrutiny on Thursday, we are actually having a review of the corporate peer challenge. And of course, elements of these amalgamated committees come into that, particularly in terms of brighter futures. I actually had highlighted myself the inconsistency between 1.1.3 and the recommendation 2.3, the membership of the new panel. It was rather vague, and I've actually put here, you know, give us a clue, bearing in mind that, you know, I don't know, do we know yet who the chairman and vice chairman are going to be and how that's been determined? But certainly these committees each had a significant membership, if we're going by the current membership of committees. Clearly, we don't want these committees to be so large that they become dysfunctional, but similarly, they do need to be representative of the interests of the wider member community. Because as Councillor Wardlaw has said, these are committees that are about information provision for councillors and very much the tools by which we actually do our job. And so they need to work well, and we need to have that input into their function and evaluation on a regular basis. So in terms of suggestions for you know, the membership, I'm not going to be precious about this, but I was thinking somewhere along the region of 15 members, and we would want that kind of proportionality, but also maybe to bring in you know, specific roles where we know that they will have value or add value to the discussion of that now joint committee. I am aware that, well, I'm hoping, I can't actually see her now, that Councillor Rhodes may still be here. And may have something to add to this conversation, but also to think about with the other members of this committee how they might want to see that going forward. But happy to contribute later if that's useful. Thank you.
I think you'll find Councillor Rhodes left an hour or so ago. I should give her apologies.
Chairman, sorry, Chairman, I am present. I attended my meeting and came back.
Right, sorry.
Thank you, Jill.
So do you want to?
I think it's very much something that will need to be discussed with Brian Reid going forward, because we do need members who are committed on this committee, and we do need input from other members. And I know there are plans in place for another member survey. So certainly the members inquiry service could go on that particular member survey. But I think it's something that we need to have a discussion either through the whips or through the leaders to come up with some firm proposals. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Rhodes. So, Councillor Hogben, you said you were interested in making a proposal.
Well, that's what we're being asked to do, and we're being asked to agree the proposals there, 2122 and 23. Specifically 2.3 talks about membership of the new panel be agreed as per the paragraph 1.3. Now that paragraph 1.3 refers to well, basically Brian Reid agreeing with you and me the number of panel members based on political proportionality, etc. Now, of course, we may not be here for much longer anyway in these particular roles, so what I'd like to see is, well, would this committee like to sort of pick a number? I mean, 15 has been mentioned as a suitable number. I think we should sort of sort that out today, because you know, the chairman and myself are not executive members, and I think actually it'd be a good opportunity if there's a feeling that it should be sort of up to 15, 13, 14, 15. That would be fine with me.
Do you want to make a proposal with saying with the addition of
membership of the panel then be agreed on a politically proportional basis based on 15 members, and the rest of it, I mean, the terms of reference will be subject of some further discussion, which may include us or it may include our successors in the new world.
Okay, so that's a proposal for this item with the addition then of 15 members. So does anybody want a second?
Yeah, happy to second, Chair. It's Amanda Stott.
Oh, actually,
no,
that was okay. Okay, so I've got a seconder as well. Got Councillor Williams wants to speak.
Yeah, I was going to second it as well. I just thought I'd put it that way, so I verbalised it, but Councillor Stott's beat me to it.
You've been beaten to it on that one. So, Councillor Rhodes is saying, in terms of reference, have already been agreed by corporate OSC. Yes, so that's fine, isn't it? Because that's so we can take that to the vote then. So. Should we go backwards again then, just to be different? So for the last time this evening, I certainly hope anyway, 4 against, abstain. Councillor Williams.
4.
Stott.
4.
Nicholas is 4. Murphy.
Abstain.
Abstaining. Martin.
4.
Maron.
4.
Hogben.
4.
Yeah. Edgar.
4.
Crane.
4.
Clowes.
4.
Brotherton.
4.
Benson. Mike.
He's had to leave, Mr.
Councillor
Chairman.
Benson's gone.
Right. Okay. Bailey.
4.
And Asquith.
4.
Okay, well that's carried. So thank you very much. And that finishes today's meeting then. So thank you all very much for certainly your time, a lot of your time, and your patience. And enjoy the rest of the evening and the rest of the day, what's left of it.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman,
Thank you,
and thank you
Chairman.
to officers.
Thank you, Chairman. Well done.
Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, everyone.
Cheers.
Take care, everyone.
Thank you, everybody. Bye bye.